Drawers are a lot like taxes. If you're precise, everything flows smoothly and nobody notices. If you're even a little off, it won't work, it won't slide, and it will absolutely make you pay for it later. See, on paper, a drawer is about as basic as it gets. They're everywhere and we rely on them constantly. But the moment you try to build one, yeah, suddenly it's not so basic. So I figured I'd share some tips for the build of a drawer. The outer shell for this drawer is made from 6/4 inch walnut, box jointed all the way around, and inside that is another box, made from 3/4 inch plywood, also box jointed. This push to open drawer is designed to live hidden underneath the Scrabble board I built. Inside, it stores the Scrabble tiles, the racks, and the dictionary. If there's one thing that matters more than anything else when building a drawer, it's squareness. And I don't mean close enough, I mean actually square. Because if those pieces don't come together perfectly, the slides won't line up, the inner drawer won't behave, and by the time you realize something's wrong, it's already glued. Ask me how I know. Squareness is like an audit. You can ignore it at first, but eventually it shows up, asks hard questions, and exposes every shortcut you took along the way. Squareness starts with milling. And yes, I own two jointers. Not because I'm rich, but because I'm cheap. A full 8-inch jointer is expensive and usually wants a 240-volt outlet, which opens up a whole new level of financial pain. So instead, I run a used 6-inch jointer I picked up for about $1,000, which handles most things just fine. Then I also have a benchtop 8-inch jointer I bought used for around $350. It's great for flattening wider boards, but the fence is basically decorative. So I flatten on the benchtop jointer, then get my 90-degree edges on the 6-inch jointer. The end result, same accuracy, way less money spent. So if you're making a drawer, obsess over squareness. More than the joinery, more than the looks. Mill your stock accurately. Make sure all four pieces are square on all four sides. I'm using box joints here because I like the look and the strength, but no matter what joinery you choose, any inaccuracy will show up here and absolutely ruin your day. Also, you'll notice I don't cut the box joints all the way through to the full thickness of the material. And that's very intentional. There's just no real benefit for me here. I cut them only as deep as my flush trim bit will comfortably allow, because strength isn't the concern in this case. A box joint that's 1.25 inches deep isn't meaningfully stronger than one that's 3/4 of an inch for this drawer. This isn't a cashier's drawer that's going to survive the crush of Black Friday shoppers at a Costco. It's just for grabbing your racks, tiles, and the dictionary. So instead of wasting good walnut to make a point, I keep the joints at 3/4 of an inch. Plus, that way, I save material, gain a little extra space inside the drawer, and maybe most importantly, I get to sculpt the remaining walnut and give the box a more refined, intentional look. Naturally, you have to cut grooves for the drawer base. I may be going a little overboard here and using 3/4 inch plywood for the bottom, which is absolutely unnecessary for this drawer. But this drawer will be supporting a Lazy Susan underneath the plywood, so it can rotate between players. Also, I live with monkeys who have already announced they'd like to sit on it and spin around. I'll actually show you at the end of the build. So, thick plywood it is. For most drawers though, 1/4 inch material is totally fine. I ran the grooves all the way through on the recessed parts of the box joints, because they won't be visible once everything's glued together. But on the extended fingers of the box joints, I had to stop the groove short. If I ran it all the way through there, it would show, and that would be very uncool. I make sure the drawer slides are fully planned out, because they dictate everything about the inner drawer. For this build, I glued up the outer walnut shell first and made sure it was dead square. Then I cut off one face, the prettiest one, and measured the interior to size the inner drawer. When installing the slides, I always use the temporary screw slots first. That little bit of adjustability can save you a lot of frustration later on. For the inner plywood drawer, I start by placing a 1/8 inch spacer underneath the drawer slides to set the height. Then I measure the width between the slides, the height from the top of the spacer to the groove for the Z-clips, and the depth all the way to where the outer drawer face will sit. I like to max out the depth, but leave about a 1/2 inch of extra space towards the back so the push-to-open mechanism can do its thing smoothly. With those measurements, I cut the plywood, cut the joinery, and dry fit everything. At this point, the inner drawer should fit snugly against the slides, while still clearing the top grooves for the Z-clips. And Z-clips are clever little things. Because of that slight upward bend in their shape, you can actually push the height of the inner drawer a bit past the Z-clip groove without causing any issues. Once everything fits right, I cut the grooves for the base of the inner drawer and glue everything up, making absolutely sure it's square. Next, I make sure the slides sit flush with the back and bottom of the inner drawer, then screw them in place. Finally, I slide both halves of the drawer slides together and check that everything moves smoothly. No binding, no wrestling. If the drawer feels a bit sticky or off kilter at this stage, don't panic. You haven't ruined it. Well, sort of, but you can still fix it by measuring the width of the gap between the outer and inner drawer at the front and back, and slipping in a tiny shim or two to get everything lined up just right. Just make sure any shimming you do is solid, glued and screwed properly, so they actually do their job and don't wander off later. For all these reasons, I'm still amazed that making a drawer is somehow more complicated than building a whole dining table from scratch. Once the test fit feels right, that's when I move on to the finishing. Sand and apply finish. If I missed something or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.